Hello, this is going to be part 2 of the parable of the wheat and the tares. Now, before we get into the conclusion, I'm hoping the conclusion of the parable of the wheat and the tares, what I'd like to do is go over and read the parable of the wheat and tares, because I had to do this in 2 parts, and I want to make sure that we all remember what it is we're discussing. So let me read through it real quick, and then we'll finish up here. So in Matthew 13:24, another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. And that's the children of the kingdom. Okay? Aren't these are the ones that God chose from the foundation of the world? Matter of fact, let's show that. All right, in Ephesians 1:4, Paul writes, According as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. And boy, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people that utterly hate the idea that Christians could possibly be the chosen people. I mean, they absolutely despise that. They really do. All right. So, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares, or weeds, among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. So, and then in verse 36, Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went to the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. So, hey, explain this story that you started here. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered, and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. I might actually make this a 3-part series. We'll see how it goes. All right, so in verse 40, As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. So how is the Lord going to gather the tares? Let me explain how my opinion is on how this works. Cities. I think the Lord's going to gather all the tares into the cities, and they'll be gathered together. That is my opinion. You see, during the Old Testament times, many of the people that you read about in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, they were farmers, they were shepherds, herdsmen. Primarily, they were agricultural. All right? So that's what people were. But now, everybody's moved pretty much to the cities. Now, how did this occur? Well, Satan has a plan, and he's been working on it for hundreds of years. And I sort of kind of know what the plan is, and I must admit, by our standards, Satan is absolutely brilliant. But then again, you got to figure, when we were 5 years old, what did we know? And then over the next 20 years, when you went from being 5 to 25, how much knowledge did you gain? Hopefully quite a bit. You went to school, high school, maybe college, you learn things. So imagine if you're an angel that's lived for thousands of years. You've lived those 20 years times, what, hundreds of times, maybe 100 times, whatever. So, what happens is, Satan had a plan. Get people off the land into the cities. And how has he accomplished this? Well, back about 100 years ago, great numbers of people lived on the farms. Now there are very, very few family farms left. And how did this happen? What happened? How come there aren't any family farms? Well, there's a number of reasons. But before we get into that, if you want to get into this more in detail, when you go to my homepage, I have a video. The homepage video is the economic collapse leading to 666, and I go into a lot of this stuff. But the thing is, the U.S. government has, and the states have enacted what's called property taxes. Now, taxes are a fact of life. I mean, even Jesus paid tax. And he, at least I think 1 or 2 times in the Bible, they even show that he paid tax. But the thing is, with property tax, it used to be people would have to pay sales taxes. The Constitution even wrote what was called a tariff. A tariff was for a tax on a good that was imported from another country. Well, the United States decided it wasn't going to tax with this free trade. They decided they're not going to tax stuff from China. They're going to tax U.S. citizens. Now, what kind of insanity is that? If I, as a U.S. citizen, want to hire U.S. people born in the U.S. and hire them and give them jobs and build products here in the U.S., I got to pay huge taxes. But if I move that same factory to China, let the Chinese build it, bring the product over here, I don't pay any tax. And that's what free trade is, people. That's insanity. So I'm destroying the tax base. So not only do we have a huge national debt, we're actually destroying our ability to pay it, which will lead to bankruptcy, by the way, but that's another study altogether, which I cover on that 666, economic collapse of 666. But the thing is about property tax, if there's a depression or an economic upset and you can't pay your property tax, the government will come, send the sheriff, armed sheriff, and they'll take you off the land. They'll kick you off. And if you fight them, they'll probably kill you and drag your dead body off the land. So technically, when you think about it, you do not own your land. You are renting it from the government, and they call it property tax. So, during the Depression in the 30s, a lot of family farmers couldn't pay the tax, so they lost their property. Went to the state, the county. You know, people could feed themselves back during that last depression. And they fed themselves. Now everybody's herded into cities, and if there was a transportation upset or civil riots, you're basically, if the grocery store closes, you're out of luck. Another thing also, did you know that family farms, well, another reason family farmers are being squeezed out, did you know that the United States Department of Agriculture sets the price that the farmers can sell their goods? Did you know that? If you grow corn, the Department of Agriculture sets the price for a bushel of corn. They tell you how much you're going to get paid for your corn. I mean, is that freedom? No. How would you like the government to come in and say, oh, by the way, you're going to work, when you're working in this factory, this is what we're going to pay. We'll let the factory pay you. You're like, that's not fair. You know, I'm an engineer. I have a college degree. No. We don't care. We're going to pay you $5.50 an hour. That's it. I mean, people would be screaming. But the farmers, they get told by the Department of Agriculture what they're going to get paid. Now, I know this sounds like a conspiracy, but you think about it. The big food companies, Archer Daniel Midland and your big factory farm companies, suppose they're in collusion with the Department of Agriculture, and they say, you know what, we grew corn last year, and you gave us, you set the price of corn at a good high rate, we made a profit. Well, we don't want to do that again this year. This year we want to grow wheat. So we want you to make the wheat price this year high, but make the corn price real low. So all the family farmers that said, hey, they made money on corn last year, let's grow corn. So they grow corn, but then last year they made money, but this year the price of the corn is going to be real low. So the farmer loses money, can't pay his bills, bank forecloses, can't pay your property taxes, the county takes your farm. And then they sell it to Archer Daniel Midland or whoever. But Archer Daniel Midland, who was in collusion with the Department of Agriculture, they didn't grow corn. They grew wheat and made good money on it. Please don't tell me that's not possible, because that happens all the time. I've worked in government before, and I've just seen so much. It's everywhere, top to bottom. So, and that's why they hate farmers markets, because the farmer can sell his goods direct to the public can get a better price than they can from the grocery store, and the farmer gets a fair price for his food. Oh no, we can't have that. You're going to get paid what the government tells you you're going to get paid for that wheat or corn or whatever crop. The government has no business telling a farmer what he's going to get paid for his crops. That's not freedom, that's communism, when you think about it. Another thing, too, when I was in business college at Florida State College, the I forget what class I was in. I'm not sure if it was economics or accounting. I think it was accounting. You're talking 20-something years ago. About 25 years ago, actually. And the professor came in with a loaf of bread. You know, not a cheap white bread like Wonder Bread. No, no. This was like a premium bread, like Pepperidge Farm, whole wheat, pound and a half bread, that costs like $1 something back then. Same loaf of bread now is like $3, $3.50, $2.50, $3.50, somewhere in that range, depending upon what you buy. But back then it was like $1, a little over $1. And the professor holds it up, and he says, "This loaf of bread, I brought it from the grocery store." He says it was like $1, whatever. I don't remember how much, $1.15, whatever it was. He says, "How much do you think that the farmer that grew the wheat for this bread made off this loaf of bread?" And, people made some guesses, and, we were all wrong. He says the farmer got paid less than a nickel on this $1 loaf of bread. A nickel, less than a nickel, actually. A little bit less than a nickel on a loaf of bread that cost over $1. He says, on this loaf of bread, there's over 100 different taxes on this loaf of bread. There's tax on the land, tax when you sell the wheat. There was tax on the tractor, the combine that planted and harvested the wheat. There was tax on the diesel that went into the combine and the tractor. When they took the wheat and loaded it on the truck paid taxes on the truck paid taxes on the tires, the diesel, the road tax. When it got to the miller that ground the wheat, they paid tax. When the miller sent it to the bakery, they paid tax. When they baked it and put the loaf and sold it to the grocery, they paid tax. He said there's over 100 direct and indirect taxes on this loaf of bread. 100. And the farmer gets a nickel out of all, less than $1. So here it is. The farmers are making nothing. They're going broke. They're losing their farms. And the big corporations are buying up all the farmland. And it's not just the big corporations. Do you know that China has been buying farmland in the United States at an alarming rate? Do you know that if there was ever a bad economic condition, or if we had a crop failure or something, China is going to send the food that we grow here in America and send it back to China to feed their people while we starve. That's, seriously. I believe it's Deuteronomy 28. You look at the blessings and the curses that God pronounced upon his people when they obeyed and when they disobeyed. Matter of fact, let me make sure it is Deuteronomy 28. Yep, Deuteronomy 28. Take a look at it sometime, because that is coming to pass, people. America is in big trouble. And, the thing is, all the farmers' kids, all the kids that were on the farms, when the farmers lost their jobs, they all went to go to the cities to get jobs. And when the farmers' kids were growing up, they were like, "Oh man, this job ain't worth nothing. We're not making any money." They went to college, they got a degree, they moved to the city, got a big city job, right? Henry Ford, back when he was starting to build cars, let me look this up. All right, Henry Ford, he did mass production with cars. In 1914, Henry Ford offered $5 a day living wage. And stupid people today will tell you, oh, that's like $120 today. Okay, $5 a day wage. But you got to understand something. The United States had a $20 gold piece back then. That was almost an ounce of gold of $20 back then. So basically, Henry Ford every week was paying his people enough money to buy an ounce of gold. All right, so a $20, a Liberty Head Double Eagle gold coin back in, they minted them from 1849 to 1907. It was 90% gold and 0.967 troy ounce. So every week, Henry Ford paid his people enough living factory wage to buy over an ounce of gold. Can you imagine that? How much is an ounce of gold now? All right, so as of today, February 1st, 2015, the NASDAQ shows that an ounce of gold is selling for $1,279.20. Henry Ford was paying his people the equivalent in today's money of $1,279 in 1903 or something, 1907 or whatever it was, when he implemented the $5 a day work week. Do you make $1,000 a week? I sure don't. Absolutely not. So, you know, they were getting paid more money, a lot more money then than we are now. You know, $5 a day doesn't sound like a lot, but when you could have bought an ounce of gold for $20, you know, American money was worth something. So people left the farms to go work in the factories. But what has happened? The factories left. The factories went to China because American companies hiring Americans have to pay tax. When you move the company to the factory to China, free trade says, no, you don't pay any tax. So guess what? Satan got everybody off the land, moved to the city for the good jobs, but now the good jobs are gone. So guess what? Now we are a bunch of landless peasants. The Mexicans have a Spanish word called peon. No, it doesn't have anything to do with urination. It just meant a landless peasant. It means a peasant that owns no land. And you know, you think about it, that's what we are. Because like I said, if you don't pay your rent to the government for your land, your property tax, they come and take it. Do you know, I had some people I knew in Colorado, they knew I'd taken business and contract law and real estate law when I was in college under, you know, business. And they asked me to look at a real estate contract. They were going to buy some land up in the mountains. And I read the contract and I was like shocked because the state held the mineral rights to the land. And I'm like, what? I was like, when did this happen? I mean, I don't know if any of you remember it, but there was a TV show called The Beverly Hillbillies. Old Uncle Jed or whatever his name was, he shooting at some food and oil bubbled up out of the ground. He's, you know, the oil company came in and offered him a lot of money, and so he went from being a country hillbilly to the Beverly Hillbilly. Beverly Hills, California, that is. But if that happened today, the government would come in with Exxon or Mobil or Shell or BP or whoever, and they would put wells on your land, and you wouldn't get a penny. Can you imagine that? You own a piece of property and they find gold on your land? It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the state. When did this happen? I heard it happened in the 80s. Congress changed the laws. We were in such debt to everybody back then that they pledged the mineral rights against the debt. So technically, when you buy a piece of property, it's not you don't even own the mineral rights. I mean, what kind of crazy stuff is this? But I think that's new property sales. I'm not sure if that is true with all properties, but I think once you sell it or once it transfers, then the state or reverts back to the property rights. I was talking to an attorney about it, and he was basically saying, yeah, what you're talking is true, but he says, we're not supposed to talk about all this. I'm like, what do you mean you're not supposed to talk about all this? Did you hear about all this in the newspapers? No. No. What are they talking about? Footballs that are underinflated for the Super Bowl, and Kim Kardashian's newest hairdo and her newest bikini that shows her rear. I mean, it's just, the important stuff the news doesn't even bother to tell you about. So, but the point I'm making is the evil, wicked ones have gotten us off the land into the cities. And for a while there, people were making good money in the cities. But the thing is, you work for the corporations. Used to be, when you had a pension from the city or for a company, the money was put into a separate account, and the company or the city couldn't touch it. Well, back about the same time that the state and Congress took away the mineral rights back in the 80s, Reagan, a Democratic Congress, put a bill on a Republican's desk that gave companies the right to borrow against the pension funds. So basically, they put your pension into the bank, but then they borrowed against it. And then when the company went bankrupt and you worked for the company for 35 years, you got nothing. So basically, we don't have any land. We got no mineral rights. The companies can steal our pensions. The cities, if you work for a city, they can go bankrupt and not pay you. So what do we have? We have nothing. Oh, and another thing too. Cyprus and Greece, two different countries. Cyprus is an island nation, and Greece. One day they closed the banks, and then they made sure the people couldn't withdraw their money, and they took money out of everybody's account. I heard it was between 20 and 40%. How would you like to go to the bank on a Thursday and they say, sorry, bank's closed, government order, and then Monday morning you go to the bank after you hear it's open, and then you find 40% of your money's gone? The government took it. Just took it. Companies couldn't make their payroll. I mean, how would you like that? You find out not only your bank account, but the bank account of the company you work for. Almost half their money disappeared. So this is the thing. The wicked ones have gotten us off the land, have us go to the cities for all these great paying factory jobs that are no longer exist, that moved to China and Mexico. And you don't even have pensions. You can't even depend on your pensions anymore. Did you see the plan? Do you understand? So, the Lord has allowed Satan to gather the tares into the cities, but the wheat is still mixed in with the tares. So how are they going to separate the wheat from the tares? That's coming up next. There's the thing about Henry Ford. I'd mentioned Henry Ford paying $5 a day for his workers. Just so you know it, that was double the average daily wage for a factory worker back in his day. Double. So he was paying his people double what other factory workers were. So needless to say, a lot of people wanted to work for Henry Ford. He was not without his faults and his failings, as we all are, but in a lot of ways, he was an honorable man. And another thing too, the International Synagogue of Satan loves to call him an anti-Semite because he wrote a book, a series of articles in the Dearborn newspaper. I believe he owned it. I'm not sure. But it was called, a series of articles called The International Jew. Of course, he was talking about the Synagogue of Satan, about how they were stealing the country blind with their banking practices and the wars and everything else, how they were using the media to manipulate public opinion to go into war and make money. And, you know, if you're really interested, it's a pretty interesting series of articles. And it's just as true today as it was back then. And those are the tares. Now, the thing is, I think I'm going to cut this off right here, make this a part 2. We haven't even covered the gathering of the tares in the cities. We haven't even covered that yet. I've just been giving you background information about how Satan has been able to get everybody herded into the cities with various economic practices. And you know what's interesting is these same practices that he used to get everybody into the cities, right now, everybody's dependent upon the city for everything. Okay? You don't grow your own food. You ask people, oh, where do green beans come from? They'll say, oh yeah, that's Del Monte or Libby. That comes from a can. Green beans don't come from a can, people. They grow out in the field. You know, people have no idea. You know, if one of the things that Congress passed a bill, or FEMA or whoever, where the government can take control of basically everything. I mean, the media, the electric, the water, everything. Do you realize that if the electric was cut off in a city, not only would people not have heat in the winter, where you'd freeze to death, but without electricity, how's a water plant going to operate and be able to pump water to your house? So not only would you freeze in the winter, but you'd have no water. Do you know that 90% of the people would be dead 3 days after the water was cut off? Once the water they had in the house ran off. Within 3 days, 90% of the people would be dead. I mean, seriously. There'd be no food. I mean, you know, there'd be without electric, there'd be no water, there'd be no heat in the winter, and if they cut off the food from going to the cities, most people have less than a 2-week supply of food in their house. Some don't even have that. You know, I probably have a couple of weeks, but, you know, that's about it. I mean, seriously. You know, people in the cities are extremely vulnerable. People out in the country, that grow their own crops and stuff, that have barns full of food, and they have cattle and chickens. Oh, and let me tell you something. When you have property, and you got crops, different crops, a garden, and you got chickens, you don't need pesticides. You just let them chickens loose out in them gardens and out in the fields, and they will clean every stinking bug. They'll eat every single bug. You won't have any bugs on them plants. Trust me. Chickens will eat all of them. So, when you got cattle, you got milk. Chickens, you got eggs. Uh, you got crops. Farms don't, that's on a farm. You don't have that in a city. People in the city, we are extremely vulnerable. And, one thing I want you to think about. Did the Lord make a mistake when he put the Negroes in Africa, the white Caucasians in Europe, and the Orientals, the Asians, in Asia? Did the Lord make a mistake when he put the different races in different places? Because what does the government want to do? They want to mix us all together, don't they? I mean, do you know that Europeans are not coming to America? I mean, there's a few, but most of the people being naturalized citizens in America now are from, almost all of them are third world countries. Think about it. Countries that have never translated the Bible, people that have never really carried the Bible, people that have never really believed in Jesus. And you think about Mexico and South America, that's Catholic. That's the Roman Catholic system. That's not Christianity. Praying to a statue that you call Mary, the Queen of Heaven, that's not Christianity. I mean, it masquerades itself as Christianity, but it's not Christianity. I just don't know how people can get, if people get saved inside the Catholic Church, that's up to the Lord, but I just don't know how people can stay in that mess, knowing, I don't know. All right, so this is going to be the end of part 2. I'm going to do a part 3, and I'm going to put a thing on this saying that if you don't want to learn how people were herded into cities, skip this, and then go straight to part 3. But this is going to be the end of part 2. This is Chaplain Bob Walker, Light of the World Ministries. John 8:12, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And all blessings, praise, glory, and honor to the Lamb of God, slain before the foundation of the world. In Jesus' name, amen. The next part of this is going to be on cities. So stick around.